Um, all I'll say is I'm working from home and my internet was solid, so that's positive. Neill, if you wanted to talk through just where you left off, I'm not sure if you remember where you left off on tax investigation, but I know it's an area that you're deeply passionate about, so I'm sure you'll be able to go from there.
Rekindle the fire about, it was funny because I could see my face and you disappeared and I thought you'd gone for a wee or something. And I was talking, thinking, come back. And I was really getting into it. And then a guy knocked on my door and said, like, you've frozen. I was talking to no one for about 5 minutes and getting really passionate.
That
is the story of my life.
Such a shame.
When I'm at my most passionate, I'm just in a room on my own. But no, I think we got as far as someone had said, or you'd said, do I sort of supervise the inquiries myself? So I think we said. The answer is yes. Certainly the larger ones. We were talking about Code of Practice 9, which is the fraud cases. A lot have gone out into the North London area, and we have about 10 of those on the go at the moment. Yeah, to be honest, that the larger investigations, I do tend to sort of oversee myself as an ex-investigator.
Yeah.
That sort of dealt with it on that side of the fence. I think it's good just to get a bit of a mindset really as to what the inspector's looking at. I mean, for sure, even though I might know some of the inspectors, they would never cut me a deal. That would just be completely wrong. But when you both know what you're talking about, you'd be surprised how much quicker it is to get to an end game without having to joust around the edge. I'll just give you one example of a case which settled about an hour ago. And it's an inspector I've dealt with before. He's very old school. He's about my age. He knows his stuff.
Very old school then.
Yeah, thanks for that. Put the hand up and do. Basically, HMRC had some bank statements for about 3 years and hadn't done anything with them. And it had landed up on this guy's lap. And he sort of said, well, you know, the bank statements look a bit wrong. But I sort of went back and said, you've done nothing for 3 years. You've prejudiced the client. Some of the other worries they had about he hasn't got enough money to live, we went through and actually proved that he has. He had quite a significant income. And in the end, our guy got back literally within about 5 hours of me sending an email this morning and said, you know what, you're right, I'm going to close it. It's kind of good that both of us are a little bit old school and we've dealt with each other and we both know the strengths of our arguments. And yeah, basically within 5 hours of me sending the guy an email this morning, that case is closed. So you wouldn't necessarily get that with all other accountants, if you like. There's me singing my own praises here. They don't all close as easily as that.
And I know you've had a couple of times where you've kind of been dealing with people that you've already dealt with in tax investigation, tax inquiry stuff before at HMRC.
Yeah.
And I know that there was one example you actually wrote it.
Again, yeah.
That one. I don't know if you want to share that story, but I think that's just one example of how when you work with somebody who specializes in these areas and also with your unique experience, it actually doesn't hurt to kind of go up against HMRC because now you've kind of built up a rapport with people over there, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, for sure. If I have a real irk, it's coming across taxpayers or even accountants that just want to be mates with HMRC and they don't want to sort of say no to certain requests because we might upset them. It's like, sod them.
Yeah.
My French. It's like, you know, there's rules and regulations there that both sides have to adhere to. Most of the rules are stacked in the cards of HMRC, but there's certain things they have to do in certain time limits. And, you know, it doesn't hurt if HMRC is pushing the boundaries just to rein them in a little bit. You haven't got to be rude. Just kind of point out you can't do that. You haven't got a discovery, you're out of time to do this, the legislation doesn't support it. And you have a good tussle with them, as I did with this lady, lovely lady from up north somewhere, broad sort of Yorkshire accent. And we tussled on this case and we came to an answer where we were probably both not happy, but it was about right. The client had to pay something. It was nowhere near what she thought. It was probably the right result. And then I had a guy drift into me recently and it was the same inspector. And after we'd been engaged, I phoned her up and she said, "Oh, not you again." And the point is, I know that she knows what she's talking about. I also know that she's fair. She knows that I won't sort of stand for any nonsense, if you like, and that I can have a technical fight as much as she can. Yeah. And you know what? I bet that case will be settled in about 3 to 6 months and not 1 to 2 years, just because we both know that we're prepared to sort of dig our heels in. So yeah, it's, you're not there to be HMRC's mate. That is just a job for them. If they do something that's wrong, you point it out and you move on, and you get from A to B. That's what we're there for.
And there is a tax protection service that we offer that I know is kind of something, it's kind of like an insurance that helps protect business owners or clients against tax investigations and when they're being investigated. Do you have any information on how that works exactly?
Yeah, but basically, I mean, you have to be a client for us, and we have to
Yep.
have prepared the return and the accounts. And it's a little bit like all sorts of insurance. If you don't insure the washing machine and it never goes wrong, you've saved the cost of the insurance. If it does go
Yeah.
wrong, you wish you'd taken it out. It's basically, yeah, we sort of link up with a particular insurance provider, and you can pay a premium which can cover the company accounts or your personal returns or absolutely everything for a period of time over 12 months. And if you get an inquiry letter, the inquiry insurance people pay our fees, so we're working for you for nothing. Doesn't cover the tax or the interest or the penalties. If there's anything due, you have to pay that. But it's like all insurance. It's always good if you end up getting a letter and then don't have to pay like hundreds or thousands of pounds in fees. I think it's a good thing, to be honest, and it's always worth inquiring into. But we can't insure anyone who isn't a client at Raffingers.
That makes sense.
Also, just to say, if you turn up with an inquiry letter and then say any chance of insurance, you've missed the boat. You have to have had everything in place before you get the letter, I'm afraid.
And obviously we're talking about the letters. Is it often that HMRC actually go to visit the premises of people, of businesses? Does that happen often? And if that does happen and they're meeting with HMRC, do you advise an accountant be in those meetings? Or would you say that if it was me, I would be able to have those meetings kind of alone?
That's quite an interesting question. There's lots of ways to answer that. I mean, first of all, in my days when I was an investigator, if I was looking at someone or their business, I would always go and have a look at the house and see what car was parked there. If there was a shop, I would go in and buy something, but it would all be covert. And if I bought anything, you can't be taking pictures and you wouldn't want to announce yourself, but it was just to get a flavour of the business. Now, in this day and age, it's a little bit harder for them to do that because there's like Article, is it 7? I'm not sure, but the Human Rights Act infringements, you can't just kind of turn up and go into a place. Having said that, if you've got a restaurant or a place which is open to the public, HMRC will want probably to come along on the larger cases. I would always suggest that your accountant would want to be there. If they want to say, can we come down to the business, show us what it's all about, talk us through the record keeping. I go along to a lot of those meetings, and you really do want to be there just to, I don't know, see what's being said, get a flavour of the case, just make sure that people aren't delving into books and records that they shouldn't be delving into on the part of HMRC. So in answer to your question, yeah, you can. And should the accountant go? Yeah, he should.
But they're not snooping quite as much as you used to back in the HMRC day.
Yeah, I was a bad inspector. Well, I was actually quite a good inspector. I used to get some results, but I wasn't. But I'm going to shut up.
I think it just proves that you've got a very unique kind of perspective on tax investigation, because you know how it was done and you also know how to deal with it from our side of things. So I think it does kind of position you as quite a unique accountant partner.
I know of the guy in HMRC who was working for Special Compliance Office, that he was sitting in a tree in someone's back garden. Now, this was way beyond anything I would ever do, and this is a true story. And he was sitting there with a camera. Even working for Special Compliance, I don't imagine what he was going to get. And he fell out of the tree and broke his arm. And there was all sorts of runctions because ambulances were called, and what you're doing in a tree, and he sort of worked for HMRC, and it was, it got very ugly. If you've got a tree in your garden, you haven't got to protect it.
So, Neill, we've spoken through some of the tax announcements that were made today on #TaxDay. We've also spoken through R&D, Let Property campaign, tax investigation. Is there any kind of other big tax topics that you want to cover very briefly to finish things up, or do you think kind of we've covered everything that is possible to cover today?
I think, I can't think of anything. If you'd have briefed me before with that question, I would have come up with something clever rather than flapping about like a seal.
Can't send you all the questions in advance.
No, I mean, to be honest, the specialist subjects that we've got, I mean, we're a tax planning firm. We do plan, we don't just do tax returns and accounts. We do look at, the most efficient ways for people to get money out of the businesses. We look for ways legally to save people tax. R&D, I'm not going to go into again. That's a specialist for us. Anything to do with HMRC inquiries is very much us, and it's worth getting in touch. Let Property campaign is very much us. No, I think really that's I think what I would say at the moment.
Perfect. So I think that's it. If anyone's got any questions, just send those through to Neill's email address. I'm just going to pop that on the screen. So that's neill.staff@raffingers.co.uk, or give us a call. We're always at the other end of the phone. Drop me an email directly. I'll get somebody on the team to drop my email address in the comments, and I can pass those on to Neill. I wouldn't personally be able to advise you on anything tax. However, I can always forward questions on. That's absolutely fine. So thank you, Neill, so much for joining. Again, sorry to anyone listening still for the technical glitch. Obviously, we've come back live on a new stream, so we'll get our designer to work hard on piecing the two videos together for you guys so that you can watch this seamlessly. But thanks very much for joining. Any questions, email us. Thanks, Neill.
Thanks a lot. Okay, get in touch.